Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're looking at how to kind of set the stage for meditation. Prime your mind for it. Sometimes it can be really hard to get into that calm, focused headspace.
Yeah.
It's like there's just too much going on.
It definitely can be like that. And this is why this deep dive is so interesting. We are going to be looking at this set of what are called supplementary meditations from a meditation expert.
Yeah.
And it's really neat because these aren't your typical meditation tips.
Right.
They're a little bit unconventional.
Yeah.
Almost like mental exercises to get you in the right mood for meditation.
I like that. Okay, so the first one that really caught my eye was this idea of generosity. If you're feeling kind of discouraged or down, they suggest that you reflect on past acts of generosity that you've done, whether they're big or small, and that can really help shift your mindset. How does that work?
That's a really good question. It might seem counterintuitive that would help, but research shows that being generous, it really does have a huge impact on our well-being. So when we remember those times we've been generous, it could be giving our time or energy, forgiving someone, offering material things. It triggers all these positive emotions. It reminds us that we can be kind and that we're all connected, which then leads to more self-compassion, less stress, and a sense of inner peace. And all of those things really do help create that good foundation for meditation.
Yeah. So it's not just about feeling good about ourselves. It's that it's actually changing our brain chemistry.
Exactly.
To make it easier to access that state that we're looking for.
Exactly.
Love that. And I think what I also really like about this is that generosity doesn't have to be some huge thing. It can be as small as just holding a door open for someone, or giving a compliment.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what's so cool about it. It makes it really easy to do. So before your next meditation, take a second and think about a time you were generous recently. It doesn't matter how small it was.
Yeah.
And allow yourself to really feel good about it. And I think you'll notice that it does subtly shift your mood.
Yeah. I'm going to try that for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So this next one is about kind of thinking about times when you've been morally strong. So the source material suggests that if you think about times when you resisted doing something bad to someone, especially when you knew you could get away with it, that can actually strengthen our resolve and make it easier to face the challenges of meditation.
It is really fascinating, isn't it? It's kind of like giving ourselves a pat on the back for doing the right thing when it was hard. And every time that we remember those times, we're basically recommitting to being ethical. We're strengthening those neural pathways in our brain that are connected to self-control and integrity.
Wow.
And you really need that inner strength when you're meditating.
Yeah, because you got to fight off those distractions.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
So it's all about that inner resilience.
Yes.
Okay, so the next one is, it's a little bit unconventional.
Yeah.
It says that to combat lustful feelings, we should think about our internal anatomy.
Yes, this is the one that kind of gets people.
Yeah.
But it really isn't as weird as it sounds.
Okay,
the idea here is that we need to change our perspective.
Okay.
When we're stuck in lustful thoughts, we're so focused on external appearances. And this idealized image of what we find attractive. So this technique wants us to kind of turn inward and look at the reality of our physical bodies.
So it's not about denying or suppressing those feelings. But it's more like just shifting our focus to something that's not as intense. Exactly.
And the source material actually lays out this whole visualization to walk us through it.
Okay.
It starts really simple. You just focus on the bones in your fingers.
Think about their shape. Feel how solid they are.
Yeah.
And as you're doing that, notice if you're holding any tension in your fingers.
Okay.
And consciously let it go.
That's interesting.
And then
because there's no tension in the bones.
Right. Exactly. That's all in the muscles and tendons.
Right.
And then you just move your attention up your hand to the bones in your palm, your wrist, your forearm, and just keep letting go of that tension. You can even imagine chopping off each body part in your mind as you move to the next.
Oh, okay.
So you get this sense of spaciousness and lightness.
I can see how that could be helpful for breaking those thought patterns.
Yeah.
It's like giving your mind something new to concentrate on, something real.
Exactly. And they actually have a whole list of body parts in the source material that you can use for this. Everything from the hairs on your head to your skin to your internal organs.
Wow. Okay.
It's really thorough. So you can just choose whichever ones work best for you to get away from those lustful urges.
Yeah. So it's like you're creating this mental map of your insides, which I imagine is pretty insightful.
It definitely can be. But I do want to say that if this starts making you feel scared or uncomfortable, it's best to stop.
Yeah.
And just go back to focusing on your breath.
Right. Always listen to your body.
Always, yeah. Your well-being is the most important thing.
So this next one, we're talking about facing our fears head on.
Okay.
It's about how to deal with laziness.
Oh, yeah, that age-old problem of procrastination.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one might seem a little intense, but it's super effective. It says that to combat laziness, we should think about our own mortality.
Wow, that'll definitely put things into perspective.
Right.
I'm guessing this isn't about having morbid thoughts, though.
No, not at all. It's about realizing that our time is precious.
Okay.
We're asking ourselves some tough questions.
Like what?
They give some examples in the material. Am I ready to go right now?
Oh, wow.
What would I regret if I died tonight?
Yeah.
Those are some heavy hitters.
They are, yeah.
But they really make you think.
Yeah, they do. It makes you really examine your priorities.
Exactly.
And if you're actually living in line with what matters.
Right. It reminds us that we can't waste time.
Yeah.
And it makes you appreciate every moment.
I'm sitting up straighter just thinking about it.
I know, me too. It's like it gives you this burst of energy and makes you want to do something.
Right.
And that change in perspective can really set you up for a good meditation session.
Yeah.
Because you're not going into it feeling blah or resistant.
Right.
You're ready to really dive in because you know you need to make the most of your time.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like remembering that procrastination, it's not really an option.
Right. It's a luxury we don't have. And it can really give us a sense of purpose. Like everything we do matters.
I like that. Okay, this next one is kind of like, it's almost like taking a magnifying glass to a difficult emotion so you can understand it better.
Yeah, it is. It's all about getting curious about what's happening inside instead of trying to just push it away.
Okay.
So the source material suggests that we take an emotion, like anger, for example, and really dissect it. And when we do that, we see that it's actually impermanent.
So instead of getting like overwhelmed by how strong that emotion feels, we can kind of step back and observe it.
Exactly, yeah. It's like we become a scientist in our own mind studying our emotions.
I like that.
We break the feeling down into its parts. The physical sensations, the thoughts, the urge to react.
Okay.
And then we just watch them with curiosity, without judging.
That reminds me of that saying, name it to tame it. Like, just by acknowledging the different parts of anger, maybe we can loosen its hold on us a little.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way to put it. And as we observe all these different elements, we start to realize that anger, and all emotions really, aren't these solid, unchanging things. They're always in flux, a collection of sensations and thoughts that come and go.
Right. And that impermanence is important, isn't it? Because if we can see that these feelings are temporary, maybe we won't overreact as much.
Exactly. That's the key takeaway here. And then this practice of observing without judgment, it's really helpful during meditation too, because it allows you to just sit with the discomfort without having to immediately react.
Okay.
You create this space around your emotions so you can stay grounded even when things feel chaotic.
It's like building a buffer. Okay, so switching gears a bit, the source material also talks about cultivating positive qualities. Specifically, it mentions what Buddhism calls the Brahma-viharas. Have you ever heard of these?
Oh, yeah, the Brahma-viharas. They're like the antidotes to all that negativity and self-centeredness that can just cloud our minds and make meditation feel impossible.
Okay.
They really help you create a more balanced state of mind.
So instead of like getting stuck in those loops of self-criticism and resentment, we can choose to focus on being kind to ourselves and others.
Exactly. And when you see other people experiencing happiness, you can practice sympathetic joy. Okay. So instead of feeling envious, you actually share in their joy.
I can imagine that can be really hard sometimes, especially when you're struggling yourself.
It definitely can be.
But I can see how it would create a much more supportive inner environment.
Yeah, for sure. It is a practice, though. It's about consciously choosing to focus on the good, both in yourself and in the world.
Yeah.
It can be really simple things like appreciating the beauty of nature, saying something kind to a stranger, or even just letting yourself feel happy when something good happens to someone else.
So it's about shifting away from this mindset of scarcity, like there's not enough to go around, and moving toward this feeling of abundance and interconnectedness.
Exactly. And that shift in thinking, it makes a huge difference when it comes to calming the mind and being open to insights during meditation.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think everyone can relate to feeling stuck at some point. Like you're just hitting a wall, not making any progress, both mentally and emotionally.
Yeah, absolutely. We all experience those times where nothing seems to be moving forward.
Right. And it's interesting because the source material has a pretty clever suggestion for dealing with that. It says to remember a time when you really, really craved peace and quiet.
That's an interesting approach. So it's about tapping into the memory of wanting something that you now have the opportunity to experience.
Precisely. Remember that feeling of being completely overwhelmed, stressed out, anxious, and how much you just wanted a break from it all?
Yeah.
And then compare that to right now where you actually have the chance to create that peace and quiet you longed for.
Right. So instead of focusing on what's missing or wrong, we can shift our attention to what we already have.
Yeah. It's like a gratitude practice, but with a different angle.
I like that.
Yeah.
And I bet that change in attitude could be really helpful before a meditation session.
Definitely. Because you're not taking this moment for granted anymore. You're seeing it as something precious and valuable.
Yeah, I like that. What strikes me about all these supplementary meditations is that they're not about forcing our minds to be a certain way.
It's more like they're helping us work with what's already there, our thoughts and feelings, to create the right environment for meditation.
Exactly. You said it perfectly. These practices are gentle but effective, and they help us approach meditation with more clarity and resilience.
Right. It's like we're taking charge of our own well-being.
Yeah, we're not just passively waiting for calmness and focus to appear.
Right.
We're actively creating the conditions to make those qualities more likely to show up.
It's like we're gardeners of our minds.
Yeah.
We're tending to the soil, planting seeds and making sure everything has what it needs to grow.
I love that analogy. And as we've seen, there are so many different tools and techniques we can use. We can focus on generosity, on being morally strong, on changing our perspective, on developing positive qualities. The important thing is to find what works for you and to try different things.
Because what works for one person might not work for someone else.
Right, exactly. It's about exploring and discovering what works best for you.
Okay, so speaking of actively cultivating something, this next technique is all about training our attention, and it uses something external to help us.
Yeah, this one is called 𝙀𝙖𝙖𝙞𝙀 meditation. It helps quiet the mind by focusing your attention on a visual object.
So instead of trying to silence our thoughts directly, we can give our mind something specific to concentrate on.
Exactly. And it can be something really simple, like a colored disc or even a candle flame. You just want to choose something visually interesting but not too distracting.
So we just let our minds get absorbed in the details of the object, noticing its color, shape, texture, all of that.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're shining a spotlight on a single point. And as you hold that focus, even when other thoughts pop up, you're training your mind to concentrate and quiet down the mental noise.
It's like weightlifting for our attention span.
I like that. Yeah, exactly. And the source material suggests starting with short practices, maybe just a few minutes at a time. Then as you get better at it, you can slowly increase the duration.
So we gradually build that mental muscle without getting discouraged if we get distracted.
Right. Remember, the goal isn't perfect concentration right away. It's about noticing when your mind wanders and gently bringing it back to the object.
Like training a puppy. It takes patience and consistency, but eventually it learns to stay focused.
That's a perfect analogy. And as you get better at focusing your attention, you'll notice it helps in other areas of your life too. You'll find it easier to stay present, to listen deeply, and to ignore distractions.
So it's a useful skill beyond meditation as well. It's pretty amazing, right? All these different ways to kind of set the stage for a good meditation session.
Yeah, it is. We've covered so much ground. It's like we went on a mental and emotional journey.
We did, from using generosity to facing our mortality. We talked about breaking down tough emotions and building up those positive qualities, and even training our attention span like it's a muscle. There are so many different ways to approach this.
And I think what's really valuable is that none of these are about ignoring or suppressing what we're feeling. It's about learning how to work with whatever comes up in our minds.
Yeah, meeting ourselves right where we're at, recognizing what's going on inside, and then picking the tools that help us get to that calmer, more focused state.
Exactly. That's what makes this deep dive so cool. It reminds us that we have control over what's happening inside. We're not just stuck with whatever thoughts and emotions show up.
Right.
We get to decide how we react, how we take care of our mental and emotional well-being.
I like that. It's like we're the gardeners of our own minds.
I love that analogy.
Taking care of the soil, planting seeds.
Exactly. And we've seen that there are so many different ways to do that. We can choose to focus on being generous, or maybe work on being morally strong, or practice changing our perspective. We can build those positive qualities or work on our attention span. The important thing is to figure out what clicks for you and experiment.
Yeah. What works for one person might not work for another. It's all about finding your own path.
Absolutely. And it's a journey, not a destination. There's no finish line when it comes to finding peace of mind.
Right. It's about showing up every day, paying attention to what's happening inside, and choosing those practices that help you grow and feel better.
So as we wrap up, I'm curious, what stood out to you the most from all the stuff we talked about? You know, what really got me thinking was how much emphasis there was on being intentional. It's not just about hoping for the best when we sit down to meditate. It's about actively setting ourselves up for success.
Right.
It's about choosing those practices that address what we need and then using them to find more clarity, more focus, more peace.
I love that. It's like we're taking control of our meditation practice and making it our own.
Exactly.
I think that's really inspiring for anyone who wants to give meditation a try.
Absolutely. And remember, even making one small change, like taking a moment to think about your own generosity or trying to be a little more kind, or even just doing a quick visual focus exercise, it can make a big difference in your whole meditation experience.
So, as you go about your day, we hope you'll think about these different techniques and see what feels right for you. Give them a try, play around with them, and see how they can help you on your journey to a calmer, more peaceful mind.
Because the journey to a calmer, more peaceful mind starts with just one step. And we hope this deep dive has encouraged you to take that step today.